Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Russell.
And I'm a wedding photographer.
And I'm a wedding videographer.
So today we're going to have a little discussion on how wedding photographers
and videographers can work together in harmony.
Let's all get on, guys. Let's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think with this kind of topic, it's something photographers and videographers both talk about.
Yeah, and worry about.
And we're going to talk today about things that happen at weddings, in our experience, your experience, and how we can work together to get the best result for our couples.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Especially when you might not know the photographer from my point of view, or the videographer that you're going to be spending the day with. And you need to make sure that you can work together. And at the end of the day, you have to remember that the end result is for your client.
Yes.
So don't let that get in the way of anything. And just tips on how you can work together to get the best results.
Exactly. Right, question 1. How do you like to work with wedding photographers? So what's your preference?
So first of all, when my clients are booking me, I like to find out who the photographer is, see if I've worked with them before. And if I have, then great. If not, then I will take a look at their work, see if our styles are similar.
And that is so important.
Yeah.
Really important. I think with photography and videography, it should
be cohesive.
It really should.
Yeah, so I would normally reach out to the photographer before the wedding, maybe a couple of weeks, and just say hi, introduce myself, that sort of thing, and just say I'm looking forward to working with you, and that kind of breaks the ice a little bit as well, like so that when you rock up at bridal prep, you're not like, hi,
hey,
hi, because otherwise it can be a little bit awkward. So I think if you try and hit it off from the start, that's what I try and do.
You're good, like
then you know that you're going to have an easier day, and just maybe discuss some of the important things during the ceremony and speeches, because they're the kind of times when you can't really stop and say, oh, can you just, or that kind of thing. You don't want to get in the way. And I think that's the main, from what I've heard from other photographers, is that they're worried that the videographer is going to get in the way and ruin their shots,
because some do.
Yeah, and you can't go back on it either. It's not like you can redo it. So, yeah.
I think that's great. As in, when I first see the videographer from the wedding day, we're like, oh, hi, I'm Rebecca, what's your name? And I literally say to people, if I'm in your shot, just tell me to move.
Same.
If you need anything, just tell me.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's just, because you're all there for the same reason.
Yeah.
You all need the same end goal.
Yeah.
And you're there for the couple.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
When I say about like seeing if the styles are similar, that doesn't necessarily mean like the colours or anything, but obviously if one of you specialises in more posed photography and the videographer is, say, more documentary or a bit of both, I think that those similarities are really important, because otherwise you are capturing two different styles. So generally for me, like I would most of the time I would say the photography is the most important thing over videography. It pains me to say it.
I disagree.
But it is. You should be agreeing with me.
But then with me, I am way more excited. Well, you know how I feel about photography. I'm way more excited seeing the wedding video from the wedding.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I shouldn't say as a photographer, I value videography. Not because you're here and we're friends, we work together. I am way more emotionally invested in video, because you can capture things we can't capture. You can make me cry. I can sit through flipping pictures and swiping them. I'm not going to be like ugly crying.
Yeah.
When you've got the movement, you've got tears, you've got music. Honestly, videography is very, very special.
Okay.
Really is.
Let's put your opinions as a photographer. But I think for the client, I think obviously the photographer, although things are changing, the photographer is normally one of the first booked things. But for me, in terms of what is not going to work for me as such, is a photographer that uses a lot of flash outside. Personally, I don't think you need to use flash outside if the weather's good or if it's light, and because that kind of ruins the ambience for me, because if a couple's kissing or whatever and then you end up with flashes in the face, so that's something that I try and avoid. So in a situation like that, what I would tend to do would be let the photographer kind of do their bit first, and then we'd reenact it for video, and that's something that you're really good at helping me with as well.
Thanks.
Like you always consider.
I think as a photographer you have to be very considerate of the videographer's needs. It's not all about you. So I will, if I've done a flat lay, I'll be like, oh, I've just done this, like, do you want me to leave this out for you? Or I've left the shoes on the chair, the headdress is hanging up, do you want to go in and get it?
That's really helpful,
Because that is really important to be considerate that, because I want my couple to have the most awesome video. And if I can help the videographer in any way I can, I'm gonna help them. And so if I'm doing couple portraits, I'll be like, oh, like, cool, do you want to get in?
Yeah.
Yeah, just.
And that's what we do as well, isn't it?
Yeah, really easy.
So.
Question number 2: have you had any bad experiences with wedding photographers, and what can we learn from this?
I have. I wouldn't say bad experiences, but I think there are some photographers that are more, I don't know, like, they're more understanding and they're not hating on videographers. I think what happens probably for those photographers in the past, that they've had bad experiences with other less experienced videographers, and then that's caused them to be like, we hate videographers. And I have had one couple in the past tell their photographer that they had a videographer and they weren't very happy about it because they had obviously had a bad experience in the past, and I think I helped them change their mind on that. But yeah, I think outdoor flash obviously is a big no-no for me, but if it's this photographer's style, I don't want to rock the boat. We'll just do it turn by turn. And yeah, not really. I mean, I think because the way that I shoot, I'm very aware of where the photographer is, so I try and stay back a little bit and do what I can. And I sometimes I like to include shots of the photographer taking the photos, because maybe that moment might have been funny or special, and I think the supplies that you have on your wedding day are part of your day as well. So if there's a little clip of you having your group photos taken, that's a fun memory as well for everybody. So yeah. I haven't had that many with videographers. I think it's just been a case of not communicating, or videographers like you said, who aren't as understanding, or they're mid couples. I had one videographer who was like, okay, can you do that again to the couple, and can you do that again? And the couple were looking at me and they were like, we're done, we're over this. You've only got so much
I was like,
time.
dude, just get it in one. Just capture them walking. They're not going to walk back down and back up again.
No.
I think that...
Especially when you're time limited as well, and patience and stuff. Because sometimes if we're doing like couple portraits, it could be mid-dessert or something like that.
Exactly. I think just communicating to each other. So
Yeah.
if I'm walking backwards down an aisle when they're coming down for confetti, I'll say, okay, let's do it together.
Yeah, side by side. Crouch, walk back, yeah.
Question number 3, what do you like about working with wedding photographers?
Okay, so mostly I think having company on the day is like one thing. Because
I love the banter with videographers, I love it.
Because even though you're part of the wedding, sometimes obviously the families and everything, they're doing their own thing. And then on your lunch break and stuff, it can be a little bit lonely if you haven't got anybody with you.
Yeah,
but obviously, I've never shot a wedding without a photographer.
Oh yeah, of course.
So, but for you would have shot.
Yeah, some weddings I go to, it's a real shame.
Yeah.
Because I think, oh, that would have been so beautiful on film. And then I'll just be sitting by myself, eating my dinner.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Be like, oh, that's a great wedding to myself.
But for me, on the lunch break, it can be, depending on how the day's gone, it can be either really funny and enjoyable to get to know the person, or it can be really like awkward. But yeah, and I think it's nice having the company and being able to bounce ideas off of each other as well. Like, so like recently when I was at a wedding and we were in an orchard, and I was like, we've got to go and get Holly's peacock chairs and put them in the orchard, and they were like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then like you just kind of, once you're in that mode and bouncing ideas, I'll be like, nah, let's do this, let's do this, let's do that.
And that's the beauty of working with other creatives. You will spot things
that
they won't, and you'll think of ideas, and when it comes together, it's magical, isn't it? Yeah,
because also like having a second pair of eyes on it is really important. Like I might notice that a bit of hair is looped up or something, but the photographer or myself, we're always looking, like checking our settings, checking the framing, checking the battery, the memory card, all of those things that it looks like we're just kind of taking pictures and doing video.
A lot more to it, guys.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think having a second pair of eyes is really good to help getting the shots.
Definitely. I always really, really appreciate when videographers are really helpful. If it's even like chucking the veil.
Yeah.
Or kind of, just being helpful.
Yeah.
But the banter, I love the banter.
Yeah, it's good if there's bants, it's like...
If the bants is good, it's a good wedding.
Yeah.
So what things do wedding photographers need to consider when we work with you? So what things, if you could just say to photographers, do this, this and this, you need to consider this, what would it be?
Well, apart from really like standing in the way as such, and I think we've already covered that, there's not really a great deal from my personal point of view, just because I'm more considerate of them.
Yeah.
I would never say like, please don't use your flash, or please don't do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think silent shutter maybe during reading any love notes or something like that. Because
that's a good point.
obviously, like if we're reading a love note or a card, that's one thing, and I can hear over my shoulder the click, and I'm like,
You only need one shot of them reading it. Just take the one, and then because you're recording audio.
Yeah, exactly. Or turn silent shutter on if your camera has that. But yeah, apart from that, I mean, I'm quite relaxed in that way.
With ceremonies, I know with I think the only time when it gets kind of awkward with videographers is the ceremony when you have your tripod at the back and then a camera there, whatever. And I know with some videographers, I will go in front for a shot, but I won't stand there the whole time.
Yeah.
How's that for you?
I've had that before. I've said to the photographer, so just so you know, if it's okay with you, I'm going to put a tripod over there. And they'll be like, yeah, okay, then forget about it mid-ceremony, block the whole ceremony. But obviously I'm shooting on 2 cameras anyway, so it's not that big a deal. And it's something that you can't exactly stop the wedding for and say,
sorry guys, can you just do it again?
Yeah, you're in the way. So yeah, and obviously when I'm setting up that tripod as well, I try and check with the photographer if they're around. Is it okay for me to put my tripod there? Because the last thing I want is an ugly tripod in your shots, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Number 5. So what is something wedding photographers typically don't know about videographers? What's something we don't know about the process?
So maybe how long it takes to edit?
Yeah. I don't think people realise, like, videography, you work a lot harder than us in post. Like, oh my days.
So we have things like the sound, which is a major thing, because the thing is, a lot of the time you're setting up microphones. You can't go back and check that that's on. Like, you have to make sure that it's on.
Oh, that gives me the fear.
I fear it every single time. Like, I triple check it.
Oh gosh.
Excuse me. Like when that red blinking light's on, I know it's good to go, and you can lock them obviously so they don't stop recording midway. But it is always one of my big fears that it's just gonna stop. But it hasn't happened, so it's fine.
That's good.
Yeah, I think because with photos as well, they can, as long as you've got, let's say you've got all the photos, with video it can go, the edit changes things so much. Like, you could have it fast-paced, slow-paced, slow motion, upbeat music, romantic music, sound effects, colours, there's all of that that you can play with afterwards, and I think that you can completely change the mood of the story and stuff. Not that that's something that necessarily photographers need to be aware of as such. On the day, generally I'm not as vocal as the photographers, because I'm not going to be calling the group shots and all of that kind of stuff. But
lucky thing.
Yeah. people say that to me as well. They're like, you're so lucky, you don't have to do any of this. So, yeah, even though maybe I'm not talking as much, generally, like, I'm smiling into my screen because I'm happy with what I'm getting.
I do love when I look across and you're like,
yeah,
I was like, is that a good shot?
But yeah, rest assured, even though I'm maybe not talking, and I will talk at some point when when I'm in the zone, like, let's do this, let's get that shot. But I think, most of the time I'm thinking of my settings, like thinking of my filters on the front of the lens, thinking of my exposure and everything like that, and
composition is just
and also having how to tell the story as well, because if I don't get a certain shot of, say, like the father of the bride coming into the room, and then they have the reveal or something like that, it doesn't really make sense.
Do you know on the day where it's going to go story-wise, or do you know afterwards? You don't? No,
and I don't pick the music before, I don't pick the colours before, because I think with weddings you don't know what you're going to get when you go in. And I think some of the weddings that you think maybe are not as, like, over the top as some other weddings, like not as grand or whatever, you can be pleasantly surprised, because I think by not overthinking it, you're not thinking like, right, I've got to do this, make sure I get that shot.
Yeah.
And I think if you try and plan it too much, then you can come away disappointed. So yeah, I think I just kind of go with the flow, be prepared for any eventuality. And yeah, the story for me comes alive in the edit. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
You just don't know, you don't really think about these things as a photographer because you're just so focused on you, but I find that really interesting for you. It all comes alive.
When you deliver your photos in the gallery, are they all in like chronological order?
Yeah. Unless I do like establishing shots of the venue.
Yeah.
I might just switch those to the top.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is the venue, this is your outfit.
That's kind of
apart from that, all of it is,
because sometimes if you're getting there and it's, say, like raining or something, or the light's not good, then I would go back like mid-bridal prep and get some outside shots. Because for me, I tend to, like you see in my videos, I tend to like set the scene beforehand, whether that be like with the drone or like leaves blowing and flowers and that kind of stuff. So yeah, you can go, like I said, with the edit, it can go in any order.
Direction.
I mean, I know some videographers, they like to use the speeches, like right from the very beginning over the whole thing. But for me, I tend to let the lyrics of the song set the emotion, and then the speeches come
after.
During the speeches. So chronological order.
So you like to do it?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of other videos I watch, they start with like the couple portraits.
Like a mega mix of like,
Yeah, but for me, I don't feel that I can relate to that. And when I'm editing, it's quite an emotional process for me sometimes. And so
you always
to be able
cry.
to,
You always like, I'm crying.
Yeah, literally. I cry pretty much.
I love that though. That's like how emotionally invested you are.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely try and be like as connected. You're the same, like connected to our couples as you can.
Definitely.
So yeah, I think it can go any way with the edit.
Yeah. What should wedding couples consider when booking their videographer?
So I think for me, the main thing would be style.
Yeah.
So I know your photos are very light, bright, editorial, really like crisp and lovely. And I think for me, my style is like cinematic, and I try and make things look very expensive and production kind of thing. Luxurious and stuff. So I think like if the colours match between the video and the photo, then that's good consistency as a couple to have like something that looks similar. Because if my video is really like dark and gloomy and yours was really light and bright, then it doesn't really doesn't look like the same day. I think also if the videographer and the photographer have worked together before, then you know that there's going to be a good rapport between the two. And I think then that's going to, again, like we were saying earlier, with having that connection with each other is definitely going to get you the best results.
All the difference.
Yeah.
And couples always say, oh, have you worked together lots? And we're like, yeah. And it's just simple, it's just easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll go, you go, I go, you go, together.
You kind of got into a routine of that. I think like if I was to turn up and the photographer was really shy, I think I might feel like I was being a bit bossy because I'm not used to that. And there has been weddings where I've said, I hope you don't think I'm being bossy. And I'm like, no, it's fine. You know, you do what you got to do. And I try not to be bossy because generally the photographer is kind of orchestrating the shots. But then, I think making sure that they're a good team is really important.
And that's the thing, it's teamwork.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't, because I know people kind of do moan about it, that sort of thing, like, oh, I worked with this videographer, it's a nightmare, and it doesn't need to be like that.
No.
It doesn't need to be. It can be really, really fun.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a riot together at weddings.
Yeah.
And you're both there for the same reason, so.
Yeah, just get along.
Yeah.
Can't we all just be friends?
Let's all be friends, guys.
I see in Facebook groups as well, like people ranting about certain
people going off in it.
Well, it doesn't have to be like that. Like, okay, some are like worse than others in communication wise. Yeah. But I think just clear the air straight away. If you've worked with them before, fantastic, because you're gonna do a good job. And I mean, you've got one shot at it. Literally. So
make it a good one.
Yeah, exactly.
And have fun. And I think what's really important to remember with photographers and videographers, your kind of behaviour and your attitude together is so important for the couple.
Yeah, because they will pick up on it.
They pick up on it, and
you don't want them to look on edge either as well. Like, if we were arguing, then we're not going to get
the shots that we need.
Yeah.
They're in love.
Yeah.
They're in love, and you know, we want that laughter, we want that joy, we want that fun, and when photographers and videographers work well together, you can just draw that out of couples.
Yeah.
Like,
and people say that to us as well.
So it's really important. So have fun with each other.
Definitely, yeah. It's all about fun. That's what.
All the fun.
That's what we're there for, anyway, isn't it? Just to have fun.
It's the best day of people's lives.
And I think I love having shots of people laughing, and I know you do as well.
I love that.
So I think if we can make the couple laugh as well, that's just like a bonus.
Definitely. Yay! Thanks so much. So I hope you guys have found our chat helpful.
Yeah. Informative. Yeah, because I'm sure there are lots of couples that maybe they pick their photographer and they're like, well, they recommend this videographer, but I'm not sure on their style, or, you know, there's all those things. So
just ask your photographer and your videographer who they've booked and take it from there.
Yeah, definitely. And just be nice.
Yes.
Be nice.